Yes, guys, welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. I'm Sai, and this is another preview for Cardiff City. And we're talking Birmingham City versus Cardiff City in the EFL Cup second round, which takes place tonight, as this will be released. Looking forward to having a quick one. Just previewing the game, obviously very difficult with predicting the teams and stuff like that. But Birmingham and Cardiff are going to go head-to-head for a place in the last 32. The EFL Cup, Tuesday night, St Andrews Stadium. Both coming off the back of wins this weekend. Birmingham have made a fantastic start to the season, as predicted by me in my championship preview, by the way, just saying. And I really like Birmingham. Really like the manager, John Eustace. And look, they haven't lost. They're unbeaten this year. It's going to be a very difficult game for Cardiff. Much like these games, especially in the early rounds, it'll be a mixture of kind of first team rotation players, youth players, a bit of both. I don't expect both teams to go massively strong, although I wouldn't be surprised if they both go a bit stronger than normal because it's a tough game. And also you have the international break looming where some players will get a rest and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a good game, interesting game. Cardiff will be buzzing after a last-minute winner at the weekend. And I think, as I discussed previously on the preview and the shows last week, on paper, it looked like Cardiff were very much having a very poor start to the season, like last year. But actually, there have been some positive signs. They just had a very tough opening few games, bar that QPR game, which was poor. However, Birmingham have looked real good, playing some lovely football under John Eustace. Got some good players. They've had a really good young squad over the last couple of years, but I think they've got a really good mix of youth and experience now with John Ruddy in goal. They had Jay Stansfield, obviously, is quite well known to people because of his dad and stuff like that. And he had a stoppage time winner at the weekend to take all the points at Plymouth. But I'm excited, not necessarily for them to play against Cardiff so much, but I'm excited for them, Birmingham, and I think they'll do quite well this year, and I think they might be in with a shout at the playoffs. With that being said, let's have a look at the Birmingham side of things very quickly. I think it's going to be difficult in some ways to predict this team, just because you don't know how much rotation is going to go on. There's going to be players who, they need time. They need game minutes in the legs who are not getting it in the league. So they tend to be the players which, get the game time in these games. Obviously, you saw like Ruben Colwill did really well for Cardiff in the last round. But for Birmingham, it was a quick-fire double in the previous game from Juninho Bacuna, only a few minutes apart, and that was enough to get the job done. It was a pretty one-sided affair, so it's difficult to kind of judge that performance. But also, you just look at their league performance. They picked up 3 wins on the bounce after an initial draw. And it's going to be a very challenging game for both. I think, both teams will want to go through, but I think both teams will want to go through without having to play too many first-team players, I think. But like I said, I think there is also a chance that maybe we could see a slightly stronger team than usual. In terms of Birmingham's team news, Marcel Oakley sidelined with a muscle injury, which was suffered in the previous round of the EFL Cup. Tyler Roberts unavailable due to a calf problem. George Hall back in contention to make his return. So that's that. I think I would call this a possible lineup rather than a probable lineup. So I've kind of based this on a bit of rotation, but also kind of, what they played at the weekend. I've gone with Ruddy in goals, but obviously there's every chance that Etheridge... In fact, no, I'm going to go with Etheridge in goals against his former club. We'll go Bacuna on the right, Buchanan left, and then in the centre-back pairing, we'll go with Sanderson and Long, I think. you could see a youngster in there. And then you've got, it's difficult. I will go with Bielik and Sunic in the middle and midfield. And, they play a 4-2-3-1. They play good football. They'll play James off the right, Miyoshi and Anderson as the three behind. They normally play Hogan. I do think Jay Stansfield will probably start, probably in one of the wide positions. So let's take Anderson out of there off the left, put Jay Stansfield in off the left. We'll keep James in. We'll go with Miyoshi. And then instead of Hogan up front, I think, I can never pronounce his names, Jutikiez up top on his own. But, it's difficult. It's very difficult to pronounce, to predict what the lineup will be, just simply because of the rotation aspect of the EFL Cup in the early rounds. I believe Birmingham will play quite a high press. They'll play their normal football. You'd imagine that the manager's going to want them to play the same way whoever the players play. It's going to be a really interesting take on what we can do. Moving on to Cardiff. I think Cardiff is going to be interesting because I believe they brought in Runnison on loan from Arsenal to be the number one goalkeeper. However, Jack Alnwick is doing superb. His shot stopping's been excellent. He's dominating his box. Every aspect of his game is doing really well. So I think he's very difficult to drop. However, I think for the EFL Cup, I'd be surprised if Runnison doesn't start for Cardiff. And then it's kind of looking at what they did last time in the EFL Cup. Who's gonna come in? Who do you think keeps their place? Who needs games? It's difficult to predict. Cardiff coming off the back of a victory I think it was the 98th minute. Ryan Wintle scored the penalty to beat Sheffield Wednesday. That was a big game for Cardiff because after some unlucky results, I'd say, and certainly, conceding late goals, it was nice to actually be on the right end of a last-minute winner for a change. And also, I thought, as predicted by me last week, Siopis made a massive difference. He started, did really well considering no pre-season in him. I thought he did excellently well. He intercepts the ball. He does so well in that defensive midfield. But what he does different to a Wintle or a Rolls is he can carry the ball. He can move away from players in one movement, and that really helped Cardiff. He was a bit slow to start, which is understandable considering, he hasn't had that pre-season. But I thought he grew into the game, and he made a huge difference. Also, I thought some of the young guys really, I thought Ollie Tanner deserves a start in the league on the weekend. So it'll be, let's go through the team and kind of see where we are and what we think. I think we'll be Runnison in goals. So I think we see NG at right back. I think Benjamin will come in again as centre back, the young player. But I think we're more likely maybe to see McGuinness or Gutas alongside him. Simpson wasn't in the squad on the weekend. So I'm going to go with Gutas alongside him, but it could be either or, I think. So Gutas and Benjamin in that centre-back position. And left-back, I'm caught with this. Like, do you give Jamalu Collins another game to get more games in his legs, help him come back? Because he is, I think, he's a bit up and down which is understandable. It's such a long period out. People got to be patient with him. We know he's quality. We know that the things he can do well. But it's going to take time. It's going to be a bit inconsistent. Will two games in sort of 3 or 4 days be a bit much? So I'm going to go with Joe Bagan in at left back just to give Collins a bit of a break. So you've got NG, Benjamin, Gutas, and Bagan at the back. And then I think the midfield will be Romain Sawyers and Evo Adams will be the two. I think he'll rotate that pairing. And then I think Tanner will play off one wing, Ruben Colwill in the number 10 to give Aaron Ramsey a rest. And then I think we probably see maybe a Robinson and Carlin Grant, actually. So I think we see Robinson off the other side, Carlin Grant through the middle with Mate and Ugbo dropping to the bench. So, yeah, you can see a real mix for Cardiff there where I've gone for. I think we'll see a mix of sort of rotation players, a couple of young players in there, and also then some players who really, need a game, like the keeper. Colwill, I think, has done well in what we've seen of him this year as well. Deserves to have a start because Ramsey's going to have a break ahead of the league game next week. How can Cardiff win? I think ultimately it becomes whether Cardiff can continue their form from Saturday, but also continue the positive aspects of the different performances over the season, except that QPR, whilst rotating the players in the squad. We have got a relatively settled 11, relatively, maybe with one or two sort of coming in and out and changing game to game, but generally the 11 is pretty settled. So when you bring in a new keeper, a new centre-back, a new central midfielder, etc., will that then mean that there's a bit of disruption to it? It didn't in Colchester. We started really well. Ruben Colwill, particularly in that first sort of half hour, the first half really, was excellent. Scored a goal, could have scored two. I think he got an assist as well off memory. Very, very good. Ollie Tanner has been excellent this season so far. And again, I mentioned, I really thought he should have started on the weekend, but went with Bowler out. But they went for Mate and Ugbo. I understand it, but I would have liked it. I thought Tanner deserved to start. But I'd be very surprised if Colwill and Tanner don't start. And then you've got the youth and the legs to really get at Birmingham and see what they can do. It's going to be a very difficult game. And if the lineup as I've just predicted, I think it's going to be very difficult for Cardiff because I've predicted a pretty strong, only two changes I think in that Birmingham lineup. But that is partially because I'm not as familiar with the Birmingham City squad. So I don't know some of their younger players and the rotation players to say who they'll bring in. So I've kind of based it on that. Cardiff's poorest performance this year was being the QPR game, which was a home game. Their away form has been pretty good. They were 2-1 up against Leeds to be undone by a late equaliser. It was 1-1 against Leicester away. They should have gone 2-1 up, and then they got undone by a late winner for Leicester. Saturday was much better. We were a little bit slow to start. I thought Sheffield Wednesday played pretty well considering their form, particularly in the first half, and we kind of grew into it. Siopis was massive. And look, one side of me wonders whether we will go with a very strong lineup and maybe only a Ramsey or someone drops out and they bring in like a Robinson or someone. I would like to see a mix. I think Ruben Colwill, it's a big season for him, as we discussed previously. He did well in the first EFL Cup game. And I think he deserves to have another go and try and build up a bit of form and then build up a bit of pressure to get in the first team in the league games. I thought, he did all right off the bench. So, you've got to give these players the opportunities. And these are the games where you can give these opportunities to these young players. The manager's come out and said Ruben Colwill will not be sold. So if he's not going to be sold, which is a good thing, I think, in my eyes, then if we're not going to loan him either, then he's got to play in these games. He's got to be Ramsey's fill-in. He's got to be Ramsey's backup. We know Ramsey's going to have a break, particularly in the early stages of the EFL Cup. So let's get Colwill in there, like we did against Colchester, and let him show what he can do. He's training with the Welsh captain every day. You're watching the Welsh captain, how he conducts himself, how he plays, everything like that. I think it can only be a good thing. In terms of predictions, this is real difficult because my heart says Cardiff, obviously, but I think it's going to be a really, really difficult game for the Bluebirds. Birmingham are on a very impressive start to the season. They haven't lost this year yet, and playing at St Andrews makes it even more difficult. The one thing which may be playing to Cardiff's favour is these early EFL Round Cup games. They don't have massive crowds, so you're not going to be like a hostile crowd full of people. It's going to be, a few thousand, maybe. If Birmingham don't start well, Cardiff can get onto it. I think it's going to be very narrow. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to penalties. My prediction for the game is 2-2, and then Cardiff City on penalties. Maybe a bit of hometown love there, but it's interesting. Cardiff just have to really push on and try and play their stuff and build on the positive aspects which have been in all but one game this season. There was a lot of positives to take from Saturday. I think their mentality has been great. I think some of the football they've played has been very, very good. And I think having certain players in round pegs in round holes, and also building from the back, but having the right players in the midfield collecting the ball is also vital. Joe Rawls had his best game of the season playing alongside Siapis on Saturday, because Siapis is doing the interceptions, the pressing, the carrying of the ball, and then Joe Rawls is able to ping it about, play the transitional balls through the midfield, up into Ramsey and to the wingers and stuff. I would like to see our wingers stay high and wide. So many times on the weekend, Cardiff's wingers tucked in and the fullbacks would be looking for a ball and the wingers would be like super condensed. I'd like to see our wingers stay high and wide, because quite often we play with, or we've started the season with O'Dowda on one side and Bowler on the other. O'Dowda is capable of going on the outside. Bowler likes to cut inside, which is fine and actually creates a lot of space for Ramsey to slot little balls in and in between the fullbacks, in behind for either the striker to run the channels or the fullbacks to get the overlap on Bowler. But too often on the weekend, particularly in the first half, we were so narrow up top. They were the wingers just were very, very narrow. So I'd like to see Tanner, and if it's Robinson or Grant, play nice and high and wide, stretch that pitch, and really hit Birmingham on the break. Like if we can, win that ball around the halfway line or in Birmingham's own half, hit them quick in that transition when they're out of position, when their fullbacks are pushing up, hit them in those spaces, because we do have some pace. Colwill's quick. You've got, like I said, Robinson or Grant. You've got Tanner, like to carry the ball. Let's get them on the ball in the right areas and not have them too deep and too narrow. But like I say, Cardiff City on penalties. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you can predict a better side than I, or closer to the actual side, I'd be impressed, because it's so difficult to project. Will both teams just go with the first team? It's very possible, because they both know it's going to be a difficult game. Will one side end up going strong, another side rotate? Will they just rotate the first team? Will they bring youth players in? Cardiff had a lot of young youth players on the bench against Colchester. I think the bench will be a lot stronger this time around. But yeah, let me know in the comments. This video, as always, brought to you by patreon.com/AcePodcastNation. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is free. And if you can spare the price of a bag of chips per month, join Patreon. You get exclusive content, rewards, all that stuff. Keeps the lights on. But until then, we bid you farewell. Thank you very much for your time. Come on, the Bluebirds.